suggest you move him after Eagle Excellence Award, item 3A. And there was also one attachment that didn't attach that I didn't realize until I was actually finalizing my agenda and going through it. I'll give you guys plenty of time to review it. It's item 8C, old business bond issue resolution. There's another document that I want you guys to look at. It's very perfunctory, but I'll give you guys some time to look at it to make up for my oversight. So other than that, no change to the agenda.
I move we adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. On to Eagle Excellence Award.
I can't see him, but I will turn it over to Joel, and it's his month.
It is my month. All right, this month I have the honor to present our Eagle Excellence Award to Miss Jody Fulbright. Jody joined us last year. We talked her into coming over and going back into teaching, and she has found her place. Not only is she teaching right now, she is finishing up her master's degree and did her technical student teaching last semester, which is a whole nother process. But she has quickly become one of our strongest teachers. She's an advocate for kids. She's phenomenal with them. But I can't say enough good things about Jody Fulbright. Having her in our building has made us a better grade school. That's probably the best compliment I can give her. Always willing to help. With Macy, her teaching partner's been gone for the last 8-9 weeks. Got a few more weeks to go. She hasn't skipped a beat. She's always willing to help. So this month, easy selection, Miss Jody Fulbright. And only one. And we get a big check that you don't get to keep. Fantastic. Would you like to hold it once? There we go.
It will be in your next payroll, Jody, and thank you for everything you do. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Yep.
you. Okay, we'll move to 6A for strategic plan.
All right, I've invited Tyler Morton to come up. He works for Barton County Juvenile Services. He came to, was it maybe in September, October, Tyler, we got together. We started talking about your All-Stars.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. Andrew and I and him sat down. We started talking about what can we do to help our kids. So he came up with and said, hey, let's start our All-Stars program, which he's done before, but it's working with our 6th graders. Phenomenal program. He brings a wealth of experience and a wealth of knowledge and can be very upfront with these kids. They're doing some really good activities, having some great conversations that maybe we wouldn't get to have in a regular classroom through everything else. So he does one 6th grade classroom one day and one 6th grade classroom another day. Comes up twice in a week. And so I asked him, hey, would you mind coming and talking to our board and just kind of tell them what the All-Stars program is about. He's also got the youth crew, and I know he's picked up a couple extra kids since he started coming over. They meet once a month here in Ellenwood, correct? Yep. And been a phenomenal addition. Plus, he's a really good dude, so I'm going to turn it over to Tyler.
Do I pay you now for saying that? Or
You can give me tomorrow next time you come up.
I'll have one of those checks for you.
Gotcha.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tyler Morton. Just want to talk to you for a few minutes about what my role is with Juvenile Services, about the Youth Crew Program, and of course what we're doing here in Ellenwood already with the All-Stars, and also some of the activities we'll be doing here at the middle school and high school. Joel invited me to come up and speak with you this evening, told me to make sure it's condensed. I appreciate the vote to already move me up. Steve, thanks for doing that, because I know you could maybe stay here a lot longer if you wanted to. Condensed version will be about 2 hours and 7 minutes, so if you make it to stretch, go to the bathroom, I completely understand. But you can't come over here and get that now. I work for Juvenile Services out of Great Bend, and I'm the prevention advocate. So I've been here just under 3 years now. Several people in the room I already know. A lot of you I'm meeting for the first time, so again, thanks for having me out here to do this. I'm going to be kind of all over the place, so I apologize in advance. This group is full of a lot of passionate youth that are doing great work in Barton County specifically, and so I could talk about this for days, but again, I'll try to give you the cliff notes. If you have questions, please ask when we're done with this, okay? I am here on what's called a DFC grant, so it stands for a Drug-Free Communities Grant that is given by the CDC. Short version of it, essentially, is that the CDC looks at counties throughout the country to award money to for prevention efforts, especially those counties that are struggling to meet state averages or stay below state averages for prevention among youth. So we're talking about substance use first, introduction to substances. So specifically, my focuses deal with marijuana and alcohol use among 6th through 12th graders and how that is impacted. But we'll talk about a bunch of different things as well. And so it's a 10-year grant. We just entered into year 4. And so we've got several more years still of this grant, and we continue to do work with that. Okay. The point of this whole thing is basically Barn County has a reputation and also some data points that say that our youth are being introduced to substances earlier on, and so we are trying to put as much in front of that as we can for prevention to keep them away from things like that. Okay. Which leads me into the All-Stars program. So the All-Stars program is something that we do with the 6th grade groups. Right now I'm working with about 10 different schools throughout Barn County, including Ellenwood Elementary, just started that this year. Like Joel said, we came up a few months ago, had a meeting with him, had a meeting with Andrea Berzer about getting the program into Ellenwood. We talked to Superintendent Jacobs back in February, I think it was. And appreciate the support that we've gotten from the community as far as getting this programming into the schools. What it is, it's a 14-week program that walks youth through thinking about their futures, thinking about reputations, thinking about building healthy habits. We currently, the lesson that we were on right before Thanksgiving break with Ellenwood is they make a crest. So they take things that are important to them, futures that they want for themselves, and they draw that out, they write that stuff out. We talk about what they find acceptable, what they don't find acceptable. The focus is basically to get them thinking, forward thinking. Think about life as a 6th grader right now. Of course, they're in the elementary school. Most of the schools are in that situation. Hoisington's the difference with them being at the middle school already in 6th grade. But talking about some of the peer pressures they're going to run into, talking about some of the situations they might come up into. Like I said, my focus is marijuana and alcohol. So alcohol is not a huge thing at the 6th grade level. We don't have a bunch of drunk 6th graders running around. But they are being introduced to vaping. They are being introduced to, maybe they're already using tobacco products. We have some, right now, especially through juvenile services, we have a lot of students that are getting in trouble with their social media and with their phones. We're seeing a lot of that stuff happen. So while the conversations have a specific focus, we also broaden that span a little bit as well, just to talk to them about things to consider as they continue moving forward. Because next year they jump up here, and in this particular community, you guys have 6 years of school that are all put together. So the peer pressures are different, the environment's different, there's more students put together. So that's what we want to prepare them for, and that's what we do with All-Stars. The kids are doing great. Like I told Joel when we first did this, and I'm very open about how this goes, it's supposed to be fun. There's a lot of great conversation. I will tell you guys that the students specifically in this community are having great conversations right now, but some of them are difficult conversations. I've done this for a number of years with the students. It never gets easier, but it is cool to create that bond with them and figure out what they are thinking, what they are seeing, because again, we can't make those changes for them. They have to decide the paths that they want to walk. And so that's what we talk to the kids about, is you guys are in control of your futures. We don't live your day-to-day lives with you. They may be here in school with you, 7, 8 hours a day, whatever it may be, but there's only so much that parents and faculty and community members can do. You guys have to make the right choices as well. So that's the big focus with the All-Stars program. If we take that outside of the 6th grade class and outside of schools, that's when it ties into what I do, which is youth crew. So the DFC grant is a focus for youth crew. Youth crew is one of 6 task forces that is under the Central Kansas Partnership. I hope you guys have heard of the Central Kansas Partnership before, but if you never have, that doesn't surprise me. It's a community-based coalition that's been around since the early 1990s. It was at one point called LEAD, and then it, over time, progressed into Central Kansas Partnership. So along with Youth Crew, we have Be Well Barn, which is active transportation. We have the Breastfeeding Coalition through the Health Department. We have Rise Up Central Kansas for those that are in recovery from addiction. We have, and I'm going to forget people here, we have Youth Crew, obviously. Chronic disease risk reduction, which is tobacco cessation. And I'm missing the farmers market, summer street strolls, the other one as well. So they wanted to have a primary focus for youth. So I serve 6th through 12th graders. And what it is they have the opportunity to basically get involved in the communities through volunteering. It's a continued education on prevention efforts. So we talk about all kinds of things, kind of a continuation of what we talk about when they start off in All-Stars. The 3 pillars of it would be education, community service, and then we also plan fun events too. We want the kids to have a great time, but we also want them to work and give back to their communities. So we participate in the different parades, we plan different fun events throughout the years, holiday parties, so on and so forth. Right now I've got about 45 active members, and that's from Hoisington, Ellenwood, and Great Bend. Okay? As long as they're in Barton County, they can participate. The bulk of my roster right now is 6th through 8th grade. Of course, once they get into high school, we have a lot of competing factors. We're talking about sports, church programs, other activities, other clubs that they're involved in. So the idea, hopefully, is to catch them around 6th grade, get them interested when they're not doing as much, and then get them to stay all the way through. We have some students. I've got a couple seniors this year, including one from Ellenwood, a couple juniors and sophomores as well, and some incoming freshmen. So the group is great right now. We've done a lot in 2024. Right now, this time of year is a little bit slower for us because we're celebrating holidays. Kids are in and out of school quite a bit. It's colder outside, so that kind of limits us on what we can do. The education piece of it, obviously for the kids, it's kind of a continuation of going to school is usually what it feels like. We do 3 meetings a month, so we have one in Great Bend, one in Hoisington, and one in Ellenwood. Chris at the Wolf Hotel has been kind enough to let us use his space for 2 years now, I think. So we meet the 3rd Sunday of every month with him. During the summertime, we move the kids to a weekday so that they can have a little break and have their weekends back, family vacation, so on and so forth. Education piece is continuation of that. The community projects, we always ask the community members to share with us when there's different things that are coming up. So this year, the kids participated in the Hoisington Labor Day Parade. We do the Mental Health Awareness Day every year at the Courthouse Square, which is typically in May. We just did a booth at the Family Crisis Center for their Fall Fun Fest they did in October. We did a Fall Fun Fest out in Claflin. So if there is a community event going on that could use youth participation, we try to encourage them to go do that. Another big piece of the youth crew specifically is that there are opportunities for kids to obtain certain things that may be opportunities, is the way I'll phrase it. We're working to do more with scholarships. Hasn't been a big component of what we've done so far, but that is the hope that we can do more with scholarships. We have a big end of year celebration. Ours technically falls in June because it's the end of our fiscal year, so that always throws people off when I say end of the year. But we have a big party to celebrate their efforts, to recognize. We give out awards, we give out prizes, we invite the families in to come participate with that. And then we have really 2 big travel opportunities throughout the year. One of them, or 2 big conferences, I guess I should say. The first conference is called the Y-Link Conference. Now the Y-Link Conference, or Y-Link in general, stands for Youth Leaders in Kansas. And so this is at the state level. The state looks for youth leaders to advocate, to participate, to give out, to give information back on what they would like to see in their schools. The state obviously does a lot with the schools, a lot with the communities as well. And so this past year, Youth Crew was actually asked to host the Y-Link Conference. We've done this for 3 years now. A couple years ago in Heston, and the year before that in Salina, but we got to host it at Hoisington last year. And that was a big honor for us because there are, I think at the time there was 50 Y-Link chapters in the state, and we were the ones that were asked to host their annual conference. So that was a big moment for our kids. in the first quarter of the year, there's a couple of advocacy days. And so we have Resist, which focuses on tobacco. They have a conference typically into February. And then there's also a couple more advocacy days in March and April. And so for our kids, obviously, that's a chance to get out of school for the day. Might be an overnight trip or might just be a single day to go up to Topeka. But we take them up there, we tour the Capitol. Last year I had to run the flight of stairs. For those of you who ever got to the Capitol and gone to the peak, I had to do that last year. Teach them a little bit more about our state. And that gets them in front of legislators, that gets them in front of people that are making these decisions. And we say, you know, if you guys want change, you have to be able to talk. So we focus a lot on public speaking. We focus a lot on your message and what you're trying to get across, because a lot of times when we do these legislative meetings, they have about, 5 minutes to talk. It's not a very long process, but it gives them a chance to do that. There are several trainings that we attend throughout the year. Some are in the state, but the one big one that we do every year is called the CADCA Conference. And this is Coalition's Anti-Drug Community Awareness. And what it is it is the national level. It is the big stage for all the prevention efforts. So, again, with them, they host a national conference. It's always out of state. It is typically a 4 or 5 day deal. So the way that this has gone, we've done it for 3 years now. 3 years ago, we took 1 student down to Florida. 2 years ago, we took 6 students to Dallas, Texas. This last year, I took 8 kids to Chicago. For those of you that know Holly Boyer, if you ask her about this trip, she'll have a lot of feedback for you, because she's the den mom. She makes the travels with me. She drives the 12 hours, all the good fun stuff. So ask her about it. But this is communities from all over the world that come together. There's typically about 2,500 students that come to this conference, plus their chaperones. And it is prevention training for 4 or 5 days straight. In that time, they are meeting prevention experts from all over the place. They are, again, meeting, now we're talking about federal government level, so we're talking White House executives that they're talking to about what they want to see. They're getting individual time with that. Other training groups from across the country, so that's the big thing. When we go to do this, we have a selection process, we have a criteria that the kids have to meet, so that includes attendance, community events. It's an application process. We don't take all with us. We'd love to, but unfortunately the grant doesn't provide all of that. But this is an all expense paid trip for these kids. We took 1 kid last year who has basically been brought up in a home full of addiction. We're talking generations, 4 generations at this point. This kid is not a huge advocate of going to school. We have essentially tried to turn this back into a positive, encourage them to go to school, participate in school. But they attended every youth crew meeting, and we finally just had to sit down and I said, what's the deal? Why do you like coming to youth crew but you won't go to school? And the response I got back was, I feel safe here, I'm not judged here, and I've got friends here. We took that student last year with us to Chicago based on the work and the merit that they put into our program. And that was the first time they had actually ever left the state of Kansas. That's kind of an extreme situation, but those are the type of experiences that we're trying to provide for these students. We tell them if you put in the work, you can get the rewards back. Another thing that we are hanging our hat on this year is that one of our students, who's a senior at Great Bend High School, was selected to speak at the CADCA annual awards dinner, kids award dinner that they do every October. One of 2 students in the entire nation got to speak at this awards banquet, and that student represented Barton County. So to have that, the other student was actually from Virginia where the banquet was being held, so even more so, the only person to go out of state. A tremendous honor. I think it was really cool, did a great job. So those are just some of the things that we're doing with the youth crew program. We want to get kids involved. We want them to put the work in. We want them to reap the rewards from everything that they're doing. We want to give them a platform to share their experience. That's helpful to the schools. That's helpful to the communities to know what we need to pay attention to, because not everything is even. You know, when we go to do these CADCA conferences, we have kids that are talking about gun violence. They can't go to school without worried about being harmed. Whereas our kids are talking about other things. I will tell you the hot topic right now, or the two hot topics are bullying and vaping. I think that's been going on for a couple of years now. We encourage them to find trusted adults to talk to. We encourage them to get back to their schools, work in their communities. And so those are the things that we're doing prevention-wise right now. If anybody wants to get involved, it's absolutely free. Again, there's 3 meetings a month. We try to make it so everybody can attend at least one if they want to. There's community events. Yeah, just an opportunity for youth. It's, think of it like a civic club, which is a little bit different. But we tell them it's just like any other club. You want to be involved and you want to network and do that stuff. We have a lot of introverted kids, a lot of kids that have come out of their shell, and for whatever reason, we just had a Christmas party a few weeks ago. 40 kids there. I've seen kids that never hardly talked to anybody, playing games, having a good time, dancing around. That's what we're working towards. So I appreciate your guys' time tonight. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm glad to take them. I know that was a lot. Like I said, it could go on longer, but I'm not going to do that to you. So.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So when they come back on a trip, are they asked to share their experience with others? How do you share and get other kids excited? Is that one of the ways?
So it's funny you ask that question because when we take these kids on the trip, we always try to encourage them, and we've done this for 2 years now, which is part of the criteria for taking them. The first year, it was you guys need to be prepared to go. And they were prepared to go, and they did a great job. When we came back, they didn't necessarily disappear, but as they move up in grades and things like that, they just get busy, you know. And so there wasn't a lot of sharing when we come back. So this year, the challenge was to share when they come back. But upon coming back from the trip, the first thing they have to do is they have to go in front of county commissioners. And they have to do that a couple different times because of the fact that county commission is the one that approves the trip in the first place. But on the way back, they want to know basically a presentation, so they stand at a podium in front of a group like this and they talk about why they went, what they learned. There usually is a radio interview. We do a couple of radio interviews throughout the year because we're right across from the radio station. So we try to get the kids on there a couple times a year to work on that. Again, it's the public speaking aspect, but without having to face people except for whoever's conducting the interview. And we challenge them to share with their friends. So they have a pledge that they sign when they first come in. It is a list of peer-to-peer expectations that they put together amongst each other. So there's so many community service hours in there. There is attendance to meetings. We ask for other things like, please stay off your phone, be present, please be respectful to other people's ideas and things like that. You don't have to like everybody in the room, but you do need to be respectful to them. Another one is, please invite a couple people to youth crew throughout the year. And that's how we base who gets to go on these trips, who earns these different privileges. You know, through the All-Stars program, we have, I think right here in Ellenwood, I have 36 sixth graders, does that sound about right? 38 sixth graders? Somewhere around there? I think there's been 3 or 4 that have already come to youth crew, so that's just kind of a word of mouth. Again, that's building that relationship when we're in the schools. That's why we have support for like the recruitment lunches and things like that, because when kids first see this, it's not super cool. It's an educational piece. Somebody says I have to work. They may feed me occasionally. We do try to feed them, but my grant doesn't provide a lot for food, so a lot of that we have to do through juvenile services or out of our own pocket. But it's not the cool thing. It's not a sport. It's not that. And so once they see it once and they get involved and they realize more about what it's about, that's usually when they start inviting friends back to come participate.
Do you have issues with transportation? So if you're having this in Great Bend and you've got kids from Hoisington and Ellenwood, is there a solution for that, or is it incumbent upon parents just to get their kiddos there if they want to go?
So food and transportation are probably the 2 biggest things. We don't have a bus. We have 6-passenger vans. Now we have 2 of them, so that's worked out a little bit better for us. Transportation was a huge issue, but also not focusing solely on Great Bend and spreading out to the other communities. And so we did Hoisington, Ellenwood, and Great Bend. Those have been going on. Each Great Bend obviously longer, but the other 2 for 2 years now. Being able to come to the actual communities allows for more kids to participate. When we do the travel trips and things like that, a lot of times we'll rent a van from Hertz or do something like that, but even then we're still talking about 12 passengers. We're not talking about loading up all 40. The only successful thing I've done with all the kids so far is last October, we threw a Halloween party, was able to get a party bus for that, and that got them all in, although the party bus broke down on us, so that wasn't that cool, but we have trip waivers that all the parents have to sign before the kids participate, and so that allows for us in the county to be able to transport. But yeah, it is a barrier, and really that's a barrier for all prevention groups, maybe any group across the state. If you don't have buses, transportation's difficult. I don't think there's a solution to that on the horizon. That's one of the things we've been talking to the state about is, what do you do? Because they also have the same thing. They're like, oh, we let 100 kids up here for Advocacy Day. Yeah, so do we. Do you have a bus? Because I don't have a bus. I will give a lot of thanks to our parents, especially the group that we have involved in right now, and really all the parents that have been involved. They've been very good about bringing them to the meetings, bringing them to the community events. We just did Trail of Lights this past week where we're out at Brit Spa, welcoming guests into the park to look at the Christmas lights. We had probably 10, 15 parents that were out there with us, managing the kids and stuff too, because obviously it's dark, it's cold, all the fun stuff. So the parents, we try to keep them really involved as well. One last thing I do want to note too, just kind of a side note here. As the DFC grant, data is a big piece of what we do. And you guys probably have heard this before. So most of my data stuff that I focus on is from the KCTC survey, the Kansas Communities That Care survey. I think that was just done recently here, is that correct? You guys just got done doing that? That's a survey for 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders. I appreciate any support you guys give to that. I know it's a long survey. I know it puts a lot on the schools to assess that and monitor that and collect that information. I get all that. You know, how honest the kids are when they take that survey, I can't tell you because I'm not there with them. Plus it's private information. It's not out there for everybody. But it is an important piece of what we do and how we continue to manage our efforts around the community. So for those of you that do support that, I appreciate you. For those of you that are not familiar with it or maybe a little hesitant on it, I promise you, because we've gone through this ourselves on our end, it is completely private. No one knows about it. Okay, there's no names assigned to it or anything like that. The information that we get back typically does match trends that we're talking about already. So even if some kids don't fill it out to the best of their ability or just kind of hurry through it, I still think that information is valuable. It does help us with grants. And I believe it also helps in the school system too, if I'm not mistaken, as far as accreditation, things like that. So it's a piece for that as well. Yeah, so any support. It's been a hot topic over the last couple of years. There's been stuff with legislation changes and you having to opt in with the signatures and things like that. I know it's a lot, trust me, but please continue to support it so we can make these efforts better. Okay?
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
guys.
much.
Appreciate you.
Back up to item 4A, patron reports. Is anyone in the room wish to address the board? Okay, we'll move on to board reports. Items to share this for this week.
When we went to the annual conference, I just thought I would list, there were like 4 sessions, and the ones I went through, there's one in particular that was kind of educational for me. One was Beyond Discipline. 11 more started a school and school rooms manned by long-term subs to cut down on kids who repeat in suspension. They cut their suspension hours by 65%. Anyway, it's a good program. It's a big school, and it's kind of more information rather than maybe something directly applicable to us. The Burlingame superintendent had ABCs of thriving and kind of good practices on running a school, like an example of giving awards for grit and determination rather than your grade or you scored on the test or something. Another one was talked about the new KISA process, and of course Ben's talked a little bit about that. They went through how the intention is to tie together building needs and strategies and budget and tie it all into the accreditation program. The one session that was of the biggest news for me was a blueprint for literacy. Had to do with Senate Bill 438 and a state mandate for structured literacy in reading. And Ben can tell you more about this, or any of our principals could, but it was the notion that the state's getting together with a mandate for implementing the science of reading across all the schools, and that one requirement would be for 6 hours of graduate credit required for all pre-K through 8th grade teachers to have us all done in place by 2030 on this structured learning, how we're going to do this in English. And they even talked about in this session, and this session was hosted by the person who's in charge of it. They've only been doing it for 5 months. They plan to really kind of implement it in 2025. They want to develop courses. They already have courses for teachers. They want to also have courses for paras, for building leaders, and school board members on the subject. And they also want to establish 7 support centers across the state to help it. So that's my cliff notes on it, but it's kind of what appears to be a big deal coming down the road for us.
Madam President. So my board report for this month centers around our special services and some academic programming that involves special services and USD 355. And what I would like to do is visit in more depth with Mr. Jacobs and gain some more insight into some things possibly, and then be better prepared for next meeting to talk in more detail when we have some more information.
Is there anything generic that you're thinking of? Is it just a relationship with like the co-op? Is it
I think there's a couple things.
personnel or?
I think one is what our relationship with the cooperative is, how that's structured. You know, we pay, when I looked at the budget, we pay a significant amount of money to Barton County Cooperative for these services, and I want to understand that a little bit better, what we get for that. I also want to understand just our process at USD 355 for special services, following IEPs, making sure that all of our kids, 100% of our kids are being met where they need to live in this school, and that we're not losing anybody. I also want to know, as a school board member, what it looks like today, because I know of 2 students that are one that's no longer here, that has left our school to go to a different school, and another student that after Christmas break will be being homeschooled for special services, and possibly a 3rd student. And so that's a lot, and I don't know if there's more that I just don't know about. But I'm seeing maybe a trend of some issues that we need to address. So I just think that getting down into some weeds of that might be helpful, and then we can talk about it as a board.
I think it would be good to understand, you know, I like the concept of understanding what it is we have with that partnership and exactly what they do. I think that would be helpful. I mean, I know of the services, but not in detail. I think that would be good.
Maybe I just set up an appointment with you, start the conversation, maybe create a framework to bring back to the board.
Yep, I think that that's good. Because what I have today is just personal experience, and I don't want to rely on that. I want to make sure that we're looking at this from an appropriate level. So,
I'll reach out to you sometime.
perfect.
Thank you.
I went to the school board conference as well. I think John did a fine job of explaining that. This is my 2nd year. The first year I thought was a lot better programming, but I just couldn't take my bad picking skills for the individual breakout sessions. There was a couple really good ones that I went to, and a couple kind of duds, but it was a good experience again. More than anything, good experience with our board. You know, getting together and spending time with our board and kind of, talking through things. As issues came up, kind of based on, the different breaks and the different things we just went and sat through. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Of course, I had a good dinner with everyone. It was good to sit down, talk about everything. So enough of that. The other thing, I guess, I missed the school musical, which I was, because of that weekend. But I hear great things about it, so kudos to all the staff and community that helped with that. I know that's always been a great thing in our community, so I'm glad to see that's still going on. And then my daughters had our daughter, only the third grader, had her concert. The third, fourth, fifth, and sixth had their concert last Thursday. That was really cute. They did a really good job. So thank you, Miss. Oh God, go Gearing. Thank you, Miss Gearing, for that. Her name just left. Sorry about that. But no, that was really cute. I had a lot of fun at that. I actually ran into a little boy who did the part of the dog. There was this dog part, and he howled and sang, and it was adorable. He got a lot of laughter out of the crowd and stuff. I ran into him this weekend afterwards and told him how good of a job he did, and poor kid got all red and embarrassed. So it was neat to see him up community and stuff. But so she did a great job with the kids, and that was a lot of fun. And the third grade, or I guess I will add, my other daughter's in second grade. They didn't get to participate in it, but they got to learn all the songs. So I had like 3 second graders sitting right around me, and they sang the whole time anyway, so they were part.
They were great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun though.
Anyone else? Just as an item of note, really no details, and it's all speculation at this point. It's a great intro to any topic, right?
It is. You have our attention.
So I work in higher education, and I'm very in tune with Department of Education for that reason. And Trump administration coming in has made note of wanting to make a lot of changes with Department of Education. And one of those areas, greater than even the higher ed institutions, is moving control back to states for federal funding and pieces like that. So just an item of note, as we move into this next administration, that might be an area to really stay in tune with, because there could be, again, all speculatory, nothing's final, everything's got to be approved at different levels, but I think there's a large agenda to make the Department of Education smaller than it currently is. And I could see that having an impact on us and our state. So just something to stay in tune with. I was reading on it today, and just gives me headaches to think about, but that's on a different level. So. Any other reports? Okay, we'll move into superintendent report then.
Recently, school staff met with Barton Community College. Dr. Gorstecki brought his staff over, and we had a good opportunity to visit. We're looking specifically at some new CTE opportunities for our kids to go out to Barton's campus, and not just one-off programs, but actually programs that last the entire morning, where we can make better use of the time. And the goal is to maybe have something in place by next fall. We're going to use this spring as a planning period. Also, too, there's a state initiative that is desiring students get up to 15 free college credit hours in general education classes before they actually set foot on a campus. How there's some debate as to whether or not the funding's involved there, and we have the necessary funding to pull it off. But we did have a good discussion on how we can improve opportunities for both parties, and I always enjoy visiting with the Barton staff. I've known Elaine for quite a while. Dr. Gorstecki obviously is new, and it looks like under his vision they've got some ideas for some new programming and some new outreach to area schools. So I feel really good with where we're at on that, but it was good to meet him and good to reconnect with some of the people that I've had a long-standing relationship with, and I think this district has as well. So looking at dual credit, new CT opportunities, I'll keep you guys apprised on that. Members of our DLT met at SDAC last month with the following schools: Larned, Sterling, and Medicine Lodge. And we also had some representatives from KSDE. We talked about our school improvement day, and that is really where it was drilled home to us. How do we best improve our school? And I think we feel feel like as a team, we need more time. We need some more professional development. And you're gonna hear this as a common theme, and I don't know what that looks like, I really don't. But ultimately, we need more time to review data, we need more time for training, we need more time for communication, get everyone on the same page, expectation, special services. I mean, there's just, I think, a lot of things, and really this was a common theme from a lot of these schools. That's why it was nice to visit with them. The old model of you have an in-service day in January on the holiday of that month, and then you have one in February, and you use that to train whatever the hot topic of the month is or of the time, and then you maybe use some early releases to look at some things. It's kind of a dated model. There's a lot of districts that really set aside double-digit full-day in-services, and they've got a significant structure to it. That is not something we've done because we've held some more fidelity to tradition, but ultimately I think that is, this day kind of showed us from both the perspective of KSD and other schools, it's abundantly clear we need to come up with some more time. Again, how that looks, how that's structured, I don't know, but it is something that we feel very strongly about. So again, good collaboration there. That is part of our accreditation process, HESA, and it's required of every district. Ours happened to be in the month of November. Bond issue, not going to talk a lot about that. We've got an agenda item for that, but it is going to start proceeding very quickly. We've got the sale of the bonds, and we've got the projects. We've got 2 parallel systems going on currently, and I'm ready to move forward with that. I will say, if any point you have questions, please let me know. This stuff's going to move pretty quickly here. We've already had one board member bring something to my attention, just lots of legalese, lots of details. I'm doing my best to make sure that we accommodate all those, but this stuff moves pretty quickly. I'm kind of leaning on a variety of sources for expertise on this, and I'm really excited because we're going to start hopefully breaking ground on some projects in the spring, but yeah, it's going to move pretty quickly. Looking forward to that. Planning for next year, we're well into that. We had an admin meeting today. We're really starting to talk about a variety of items. I've been working on some budget stuff, some programming, some things where we want to add, maybe some things that we're going to take away. We're not ready to make any recommendations yet, but talk about staffing, who potentially could leave, who we need to, what positions we need to look to fill. Facility availability, as we go through this bond issue process, we might have some periods where our facilities aren't fully available because of work being done. Calendar professional development, which is the center of our accreditation piece, and then also contingencies, if this, then that, if certain things happen, how do we accommodate that? So we're beginning that process, and actually we're well into that process, and hopefully starting in maybe, I don't know if it's January, but February, we're going to start talking about next year, because I think there's going to be some things that we need board approval on to modify some things that we feel like will improve our school. As our board members have mentioned, KSB was a success. Always enjoyed that. I had a chance to network with some superintendents. Our dinner was wonderful. Got a chance to share good stories with our board members. Again, we don't know how good we have it. I hear all the time from superintendents the battles they have to fight, and I told the board members this at dinner. I almost just sit there kind of quietly because I don't know how to address it. The things that I am told are just foreign to me. We don't have that. It's, I don't want to say it's commonplace, but it's not that uncommon for board members to just get on each other, yell back and forth at meetings, pound the table, disagree. I've been fortunate, my 15 years, we've never really had that. We all have disagreements at times, but we do it respectfully. I think by and large, a lot of the political stuff that has kind of hit some districts, there's a stretch where there were like hostile takeovers of boards, you had split boards, 4-3. We've kind of largely avoided that. We all have our political persuasion, but I think we kind of leave that at the door when we come in. We focus on kids. So that's it's a very cathartic opportunity for me to meet with other people around the state. And then when I talk about what we do, even just the whole concept of, passing a bond issue. There's some that try, our district did this in the 90s, but try 4 or 5 times, they can't get it. And I say, yeah, we passed ours on the first try is something that makes me feel really good. So hopefully all you guys enjoyed it. I know it's a busy time, and it keeps getting busier. Our time gets more monopolized by other things. And but I hope that for the people that attended, it was worth your time. Last day of the semester is Friday, December 20th. That's a half day. That's when we do our all-staff Christmas dinner. I'm planning on doing that again. And great time. I encourage people to come, enjoy the fellowship, laugh, celebrate our successes, and really let your hair down a little bit, because by that time I think everyone's ready for a break and ready to recharge their batteries. Items of note forthcoming: I'm going to attend an area superintendent's meeting on Tuesday, December 17th at Great Bend. I'm going to be visiting with the architect Sarah Sipe on Wednesday, December 18th. I think Mike Baker is going to join me and the two principals as well. We're going to start talking bidding of window and door project. So we're going to get after that. I think that's the first project we're going to do. I feel like that can get done this spring, so we're going to start on the specifics of that. Last day of school for the semester, again, Friday, December 20th. Half day, first day of the second semester is Tuesday, January 2nd, because the first day that we have back is the teacher work day. That was something that was negotiated, and we talked about that. It's been an amazing, successful semester. I was telling Allie here, we talked about culture, we talked about supervision, some of the internal goals I had for her. Obviously I didn't have to tell Joel that because we already have that structure at the grade school, but I feel really good about where we're at. We're ruffling some feathers, I'm sure, but I feel like just on the supervision front, just talking about little victories. Last year I think you guys sensed how frustrated I was with that, and I just randomly go out to the hallway and then check. I look around corners just to see, and we hardly have any kids in the hallway now. And if they are in the hallway, they have a very specific reason to be there. So I feel like that doesn't happen by accident, and I feel like Allie needs some credit for that. So anyway, it's been a good semester. I look forward to building for the future. I think next year we've got some good things in store. Obviously this has been a very tradition-laden district, and we're going to have to navigate carefully. But I do think there's some opportunities to be had. I look forward to working with you guys and making some recommendations. Before I forget, a couple of other things I don't have on there. I am looking at scheduling visits to Hillsborough and Comanche County. I haven't done that yet due to the holidays, but I am going to try to schedule a visit for admin team to go there and learn some things. They are also on that list of schools for KSB that achieved to a greater extent than the profile and demographics would have predicted. And then also on November 21st, I did spend quite a bit of time with Tricia Schlesinger on childcare. And I know this is something we've talked about in the past. I wanted to look at what options were available. I wanted to kind of get a layout of their program. We talked about maybe getting some slots for district staff. How does that look? We're going to keep working on it. I want to make another appointment with her to see if there's some things we can do. The devil's really in the details here. The biggest problem is they can't get help. It's not like a money issue or something that maybe we could help with. And then if you look at, well, do we employ someone to try to go over there and use their license with our staff and benefits and capers and all that? They're a private religious organization, so that also throws another wrench into it. And then also too, just the structure they have. I mean, that's the thing where it's not like you can just throw together something. You've got these ratios that you have to, for certain ages, like babies are like infants are like 3 to 1, and toddlers are like 7 to 1. And if you mix, you can modify it a little bit. There's just a lot of hoops you have to jump through. I'm working on it, and I want to create something. And I told her, I said, if there's a way, and I'm saying this carefully, if we can even play in the gray area a little bit, just to provide some relief. I mean, I've even thought about, do we have some just private entities, some household that, we can assure them that, they're going to get 4 or 5 district kids, whether it be through slots or just voluntary payment. Start up one. I mean, you're going to have instant business, and you can probably charge what you wanted. So looking at options, it's just those structures are very limiting, but I do want to stay on that, and I do want to try to come up with hopefully something that is amenable to all parties, that's workable, that alleviates, at least for the district side, maybe some child care issues. But again, they've got slots, they've got space available for kids, they just don't have the people to watch them. And because we talked about, well, what if we gave you guys a lump sum, and for that we get 5 slots, and that's considered, I'm just thinking theoretically here, like, great, how do we get the people? And then also too, here's another thing, you can't just take a lump sum and bring in one person at a high rate, because then they've got all these other people who've been there for years and are making less. So any money you give would almost have to be farmed out on a pro rata basis, to where then, maybe you bring in someone at X dollars, but then you have to pay everyone else a little bit more to get them up to X dollars. Otherwise, you're paying someone who hasn't been there, 15, 20% more, than someone who's been there for a while. So you've just got a lot of moving pieces there. But it's obviously a need, it's something that isn't gonna get better, and because they have the license, they've got the hard part. I'm looking at ways to maybe try to leverage our strengths, maybe resources, maybe access to capers, some other things that then tie in with their strength, which is the possessor of the license, and try to find a way around that. So,
Mr. Jacobs, did you
Yes.
happen to broach the subject with her about thoughts on a district-run preschool and what that would look like?
yeah, I did a little bit, and, I mean, obviously, we're free to do what we want. We didn't get too far into the weeds on that, as far as, you know, what would be the implication. She did acknowledge that, you know, that their biggest money losers are the younger age groups. Those are the ones that really suffer, so by just logical extension, if you take away preschool, that's the one that, you know, maybe comes closest to breaking even, so that's gonna necessarily harm them. She did, I think, mention like, well, maybe if we did do preschool, took that away, and then they really focused on childcare, maybe that would help. And the kicker is for us, implementing preschool would take on costs that I probably don't have resources for, we don't have resources for, we have to kind of change our model a little bit. But that may be a piece that maybe ties it all together. You know, I'm guessing maybe that's what you're getting at, is there something to where if we offer preschool, they focus their emphasis on, you know, childcare, then maybe that would work. And I'm open for ideas. I'm gonna reach out as we go on some of these visits, talk about what kind of models some of these towns have for childcare. Ingalls was really tiny, so I don't know if it applied to them. But certainly Hillsboro's a town our size, Comanche County maybe a little bit unique, but I am working on it, and I'm gonna give you guys an update on that. So, that's all I have. We've got our administrators, and then we do have, Sherry hasn't come yet. The one thing I would ask maybe the board is when Sherry comes, if we just kind of have her interject immediately, because she is keeping score of basketball games. I would like for her to give you a report on the library, but because of her time limitations, if she does come in, we might just, please as the board, maybe just stop everyone else and then just have her speak. But other than that, I guess, do you guys have any questions on the report? Okay, thank you.
Do we have, I guess I do real quick, do we have any idea of how and when we're gonna be able to fix the roof of the library and the grade school? That looked like it looked like it was pretty bad, just,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, we got a lot of rain.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. That is, the roof is the first project in the summer. So the goal would be to start on that, and that would be the first roof we do.
That's one of the ones we probably have to do out of when we're out in service.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to do that this summer, and then just kind of make it work until then, which there are no great solutions there.
Yeah.
So I have Madam President.
Okay, we'll move on to administrative reports.
I'll go first today. My first shout out is for our food drive. Our previous record was 1,300 items. We delivered over 2,000 items. Thank John to help unload all those. We hit them in a perfect time. I think they were getting delivered from the state as well, commodities. So unbelievable participation. Kindergarten will win the pizza party. They had over 500 items between those two classrooms, but one grade. But everybody will get donuts, which I'm okay with, and then we'll get the kindergarten piece. But it just blew me away with the amount of food that we were able to collect to take out there. And it's just a good reminder. I think we were out there, saw some families out there taking advantage of it. And it's just good for the soul to see what we do, and really appreciate everybody's there. I can imagine some pantries a little bit empty when some parents got in there maybe, so, but that's okay. Keisa check-in, Ben's already talked about that. We did have a team from Simpson Elementary School in Russell come down. That's where Katie Revelle is now. She brought a team down to look at how we're using Wonders. So she met with some teachers, and she met with the tile room, and they got to see how it's being used. So some good stuff there. 3rd and 6th grade concert the other night, phenomenal, hilarious, good for my soul, I needed that. Santa's workshop, we set it up Saturday, so if you've got items to bring, please bring them. And that'll be next Monday. Spelling bee on the 17th, movie day on the 19th, taking all of them over to the movie, Moana 2. Busting them all over there, they're excited about that. And like Ben said, end of the semester, it's hard to believe we're here. Once again, I just appreciate the opportunity you guys have given me here at Ellenwood, and it's flying by, So, questions? All right, thank you.
Sherry, do you want to?
No, that's fine.
Yeah. Sherry, we kind of prepped the board for your arrival because we know you're under time constraints, so you're in between games, I assume?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to tell you about what we do and what's going on in our library. We appreciate your support. We continue to serve the community and the students and staff. Our staff includes Amy Hammocky, Technical Public Services Librarian, which is our high school library assistant. She provides invaluable support to students and faculty. Carrie Gibson is our grade school library assistant and storytime facilitator, and she continues to inspire young minds through interactive storytelling. Treva Payton is facilitating our interlibrary loan services and expanding the reach of our library's resources. Heather Dombrowski and Dana Drake are our evening library staff, ensuring extended access and support for patrons. And Caitlin Clausen is our Baby and Me facilitator, fostering early literacy and family engagement. We have 2 teacher assistants this year. Grayson Dombrowski is one of them. She continued the senior spotlight last spring that we had started the previous year, but this year she's been instrumental in relocating books, creating posters, and assisting with various improvements. Emma Clemens stepped in this fall, excelling at creating our senior spotlight bulletin board, and then we feature those in our Check It Out newspaper articles, and then Amy also posts them on the Facebook page. Events that we have hosted or assisted with, our student and community initiatives, our Reality U, Valentine's for the United Way, EHS NHS inductions, student college education and sports signings, EHS EMS library Halloween event, EHS Rake and Run, EHS Scholars Bowl, EHS Forensics and Debate Showcases. We this year started hosting Girl Scouts, and we have our EHS NHS Hope Tree, and they're gone. We had 3 up before I left, and so I was going to let you know that we had 3 on the tree, but I think, have they all been taken, Dana? Great. And so we will be delivering those on Thursday, our NHS students, and we do have one that we will purchase gifts for, and those go to St. Francis in Great Bend. Our seasonal and community events include Summer Library Kickoff with Rosie Bossy, and we had an end of summer library bash. We did the Roper Romp, which was a community event, and we had a lot of fun with it. After Harvest Festival, we had bingo and tours. Bingo we were allowed to hold in the commons area because it was so huge the year before, and the commons area worked much better for us. So we appreciate you allowing us to use that. Chris Kendall Market featured Arcade Club just this Saturday. And then the EHS yearbook had a photo booth. That worked out great for both of them. And then we also sponsored the Ellenwood Hospital Coat Drive, and they said that that was successful as well. We're going to look at utilizing more the morning, maybe opening an hour earlier, because it seemed like once afternoon, probably after 1 o'clock, our numbers dwindled. And so if we could do it all in the morning, that might be a little bit better for us, or maybe at least up till 1 o'clock. Collaborations and special events we've hosted at Apply Kansas, community health needs assessment with a hospital, community meeting for the bond issue, Kansas State Extension learning adventures we did with the K-State Extension during our summer library time. Ellenwood Historical Society's graveside conversations were held here, and then our chamber coffees, which include the new staff chamber coffee, and then the Ellenwood Public Education Library Foundation chamber coffee, which was the EHS musical honk. Creative displays and exhibits, the library's engaging displays highlight the creativity and talents of our community and our students. These include St. John CDC and St. Joseph's displays, Twilight Stitcher's quilt displays, Ellenwood High School and grade school art shows, After Harvest Festival art display, Carol Kimball Schreppel, am I saying that right? Schreppel. Thank you. Art display which was provided by Terry and Melissa Nesh. Ellenwood Energizers 4-H display, and then our public display that we currently have. Looking ahead, as we prepare for 2024, the library remains committed to supporting student, staff, and the community with innovative programs and initiatives, from fostering early literacy to hosting events that bring our community together. The Ellenwood School Community Library is proud to be a cornerstone of learning and connection. We have a big event that we're going to be having coming up next year that we are excited to talk about, but we can't do it tonight. So, be watching for it. Hopefully Friday we can make that announcement.
4 days?
There's a
That's
rumor mill
4
again.
days?
Friday we'll be making
Okay.
an announcement.
I'm so excited. We're hanging on pins and needles right now. Seriously.
I want to thank our staff, patrons, and community partners. Thank you for making 2024 a year to remember. Your support and involvement are what make our library a special place for everyone, and we look forward to continuing this journey with you in the year ahead. Any questions?
No, just a big thank you for all you guys do. It's greatly appreciated for our community.
Thank you for the support.
Sherry, thanks for everything you do. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
And thanks for squeezing me in. Sorry, guys.
Pop back over too.
Out.
It's hard to top, or like, not even try to top, but follow up some of these guys, because they've taken a lot of the ideas, and all I could do is say ditto to a lot of the things that they have to say. But my big shout out, she's one of them, is staff, community, volunteers, team members, the people who give up their time to run events, do judging, officiate, gates, to make sure that we're well staffed and well represented here in Ellenwood. I think it's something that you don't always see in bigger cities, and where we don't always have a lot of people in a town, we have a lot of people that are willing to sacrifice time and commit to things that they don't always have to commit to, and it definitely shows that there is a dedication and an effort to make a difference in our school community, and is very much appreciated. So just like having you guys here tonight and seeing our teachers show up, all the people that are willing. We have alumni here to officiate tonight. It's pretty cool to see. I ended up adding a couple things. I'll try to summarize very quickly. We've had, in the library, we had ACT Power Prep. 29 juniors were able to participate, and then all freshmen took the pre-ACT earlier that month. They worked very hard for hours in here. I had about a 2.5-hour meeting, and they were silent in the library the entire time and worked very hard. On Monday, the 18th of November, I was kind of hoping Tyler would still be here, but Tyler Morton did come in, and so did Marissa Woodmansey, both from 20th Judicial Court, from Juvenile Services, and really went through some of the programs that they have to offer, how we could incorporate more of the high school, because like he said, we have a huge number with all-stars in grade school, but how we can incorporate more of middle and high. And we are having a launch where some of the students that have been very involved are going to be representing their program to their own classmates on Wednesday. If anybody wants to stop by during lunch, check in at the office. We'll be in the Commons at 12:25 to 1 o'clock. We're going to have popcorn, and the kids are going to be open in the concessions. They've got the little croc charms and the bracelets, all kinds of things that they can give out. So they're going to be presenting from the concessions on Wednesday at lunch. They do, like you said, 3:30 to 5 o'clock every third Sunday at the Wolf Hotel, and they are looking to partner with us for a lot more of it. So hopefully we'll see a lot bigger number coming up. We had December 3rd, we hosted the Ellenwood Invitational for Scholars Bowl. I got to be a moderator, and that was really fun to see the students. We had more than 7 teams come in, and they competed really well. Ellenwood represented very well that night. We were asked to be the host of a regional tournament, February 6, 2025, and we have accepted. So we will be hosting, I think they said, 150 to 300 people. So it's going to be a big event. We have taken on, Mr. O'Neill has already started planning and is working very hard on this. Middle school girls basketball team has gone 5-1. The boys are 4-2. Varsity swept on Friday for basketball. Wrestling has started. Lots of athletic events going on. Last Saturday we had District Honor Choir went to Dodge City and performed, and Mystic Blues went to the local nursing home and performed today. There is a link, if any of you find my board report, or go to Stephanie Gehring's Facebook page. You can still sign up to either have them come to you, your job, or carol to someone else. They're looking, they are raising donations for the choir program, and they're recommending a donation, but you could have them come carol to you anytime between now and break. So we'd like to have them come carol. They are gonna be at Chamber Coffee and a couple other places over the next few weeks. So if you'd like some Christmas carols to show up, the link is there. This Saturday, Mr. Baker, thank you for helping us run and set things up. We're gonna be running the Optimus basketball tournament, starting at 9 o'clock. We've got a lot of cleaning and really shined up a lot of our locker rooms and places. Got some things organized that need to be done, so we'll be hosting that on Saturday. We've got December 18th, positive office referrals have been going really well. First semester is finished. I think I got 4 alone on Thursday of last week. Had a kid for the first time say, I'm a senior now, I've never been on the honor roll. It's the first time I'm on the honor roll and I'm here, and they wrote down I'm a whole new kid. And so hearing them brag about that and getting to host a positive lunch and see them celebrate themselves for some of those academics, even if it's just some little wins. Or I gave out one because they were cheering seeing somebody's progress through recuperation from a surgery, and we're like, you're doing great, keep going, and just seeing some of those things in our school is nice to see from each other. Saturday, December 21st, Mr. Abbott, along with Stuco, is hosting Winter High School Formal here at the high school. So we've got that event coming up at 8 p.m. on the 21st. Yet another big event, because I guess this is the year for it, coming up in the spring. After many, many years, we have been selected or decided that this is our year to do the CPL League Art Show. April 30th, we're gonna have about 150 people coming through our building, and again, here in the library. We're gonna be hosting a lot of that using our auditorium, and the entire community is involved. Everywhere from Wolf Hotel, Kansas Sky Candles, underground tours, Gather, Two Chicks, 1039, I think there is a huge community involvement in that area. So Mr. Maxwell, Mr. Winter and I are already well in the works for that. And I cannot wait to tell you what's gonna happen on December 13th, but I cannot tell you yet, but that is yet another big event for 2025 that we have in the works. So I'm a little terrified. I hope it's faith in what we're doing. Those are some big numbers when I hear over 100 to 300 people, but everyone has showed up in our community to represent our school really well. And I'm excited to do these. A couple things that aren't on here that I wanted to add really quick. Mr. Jacobs and I think Mr. Cutter also posted about on our social media School Messenger. We are no longer using InAlert. Please make sure that you go on to the Google form or you reach out to your local school and follow. There is a phone number to text, a Y to go in and start receiving text messages. We are still working on populating some of those lists that we can use as communication between teacher and student, staff to staff, coaches to players, and across the community. So people have already started opting in. We've seen some good responses. So we're working on getting all of that rolled out. So if you don't know, if you haven't heard, please make sure to check our Facebook page, our website, or call the school, one of the schools, and we can direct you on how to get signed up for that.
So, if we received a text message and we said why, we've done everything.
You are good to go.
Right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That means you are populated in our list and should start receiving information as we go forward.
Okay.
The big thing that I should have had on there, I haven't yet. Part of that is because I am just rolling it out to staff on Wednesday. Eagles Pride Time is coming back in spring. It is on a very trial basis. We have a schedule change that will be communicated with families as the semester ends. Because that academic piece, the SEL piece, the relationship building has been something that I've heard loud and clear. And we think this is a really good use of our time, and taking it out of 8th period, moving it between 2nd and 3rd period, working with Miss Nora here to set up a time that not only would that benefit us this year, but possibly if she works her magic like I know she's been doing, possibly to be able to provide extra breakfast to students next year through a special program. We will be able to use that time, and this year, being able to use it to hit an academic piece, build relationships. We've got IPS checks during that time, hitting the key stuff for quality instruction, being able to, Wednesdays, we're gonna have an SEL piece that we're hitting, and just having time to see students and make sure we're spot checking. And February in service, we did talk today. Last thing I'll throw in there is a plug. If anybody wants to, we are gonna do a team building activity at one point. If anybody would like to judge a food competition for team building across the grade levels, we do have a chop challenge if somebody would like to be a judge.
Is there eating involved? That's what I need to know.
Yes, and Kristen Fisher is already,
Can you get an ingredients list ahead of time? I don't think I wanna judge half the things I see on Job.
I will see what I can find out. That's a good question. Okay, hope they'll have a lot more information coming.
Thank you.
You guys, the leadership, the district court leadership, did you guys realize how many acronyms and abbreviations you speak in that I think a lot of us don't know? Maybe I'm,
SEL.
maybe I'm really
Social learning, and IPS was individual plans of study, so looking at their, like their Zello,
Sorry.
their grade check.
There's
Sorry.
so many. It's worse than the military.
I learned a new one today, so we're still learning ourselves.
I sit here and be quiet most of the time, because I'm like, I probably should know these, everybody else doesn't seem to say anything. But I was like,
Smart people,
yeah, I was like,
non-smart
eventually
people
I
ask
gotta,
questions.
Yes.
yeah, eventually I gotta just ask.
I
What are we
asked her
talking about here?
for one, and she didn't know, so I didn't know, so we're on the same page. We're learning together.
Okay, we'll move back over to director reports.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Okay.
As you all know, I'm Mike Baker, and to all the board members, it's that time of year again for my board report. It's been another successful year of work to maintain, repair, and improve our schools. Every year it seems I'm challenged with new problems for which I have to come up with creative ideas to tackle them. So I've made many minor repairs throughout both schools this year, ranging from plumbing, electrical, HVAC, to door access control. I've worked in tandem with Ryan Cutter on several large projects this year, including new door security, the new scoreboards and TVs in the gyms. I've also successfully rewired most of the lighting fixtures in the buildings to LED light bulbs, including in the gyms. We successfully replanted the grass here at the high school within the last year and a half. With the help of John Thorson, who without him, I could not have achieved that goal. It has exceeded my expectation, so it looks really great out there. Working with a local sprinkler company, we have gotten the watering system back to 100% at all of the buildings, including at the grade school. There was a system down there that was completely dilapidated, but we managed to get it back up and running. So that's something else that maybe we could approach in the next couple of years, is that north field of the grade school, maybe tearing it up and replaning that, because I know we use it for some of the, like soccer and flag football and stuff like that. So,
Middle school football.
yeah, that is a big one. Middle school football does practice out there. I don't know if you guys saw, it actually did kind of come back a little bit. There was some grass out there this year. They weren't practicing in the dirt. Let's see here. Another large issue that we discovered this summer was a block in our main water line coming into the building. With the help of a local contractor and the city workers, we managed to get it repaired before we had a major catastrophe. We made some upgrades to our south gym here at the high school, including handrails on that old bleacher set plus vinyl curtains, so that prevents people from going underneath. Right now, we have a full staff on our custodial department. We found some great people to fill the roles that we had vacancies in throughout the year. With the passing of the bond issue, I'm excited to tackle the larger issues concerning the entrances, the roofs, the windows, the doors, and the HVAC issues. And I'm currently working on plans for the new scoreboard at the softball field, the repair of the boiler system here in the next couple of months, and some concrete work on the curbs. Also a project with Sherry Holmes as far as turning this dirt and grass and that old tree stump out there into a paved area where she could put like a picnic table or something out there. She had approached us about that. So, and then also installing some new flooring out in the ag classroom. I did try and approach that project this summer, and I did blaze some new concrete and painted it, but it's just not working quite right, so I'm gonna have to tackle it again this winter. So I think during Christmas break, I'm gonna try a vinyl, laminate, and see if that'll take care of it, so. All right, I think that's it. Was there any questions or concerns? I will be with Ben on the 18th to start the planning process for all the upcoming bond issue items. The roof at the grade school that you brought up, I will here in the next few weeks. I'm gonna get up there and see if I can patch it to keep any snow that happens this winter and also rain for the spring until we can actually change out that roof. There are some tar options that I might be able to just get up there and roll on that might buy us a few months until we can tackle it.
So it sounds like you're concerned you're gonna run out of things to do.
You know, like I said, every year presents a new set of challenges, and I do my best to rise up to them.
Well, the machine on our E-Rec for him.
Yeah. Any questions?
Thank you so much for everything.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Mike, thanks again for everything.
Yeah, of course.
You know how I feel about you. You do a wonderful job, and we're glad we have you.
Well, I am glad to be here, so.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Don't fight it.
Hello. So our food staff down at the grade school, we have Kathy Roop, and Lacey, Leon, I almost said Keith, and then Gina Browning, she's also a bus driver. And then here at the high school, we have Tanya Zink and Marcy Seeker. And so in January, we started with our state review. So we had minimal findings, but one of them was to show production logs and recipes for the week in October and a week during the review. And during that time, in October, we did not show the proper amount of grains and breads, and so caused online training and development of the implement of a procedure to ensure the proportions and the non-program food revenue as they contribute to the cost of our food. So I did an 8-hour training and had to go through all of the items within a meal throughout the whole week and the cost of everything. So it was a learning process. It took a lot of time. And then we passed our health inspections in January, July, and September in all schools. Let's see here. I went to Wichita and Hayes for training and procedures on the new food service directors. That was fun, still continuing to do that. In June, I went to Manhattan for a training for the USDA Food and Nutrition Food Buying Guide and learned procedures on how the state would like the production records filled out and improvements for the standardized recipes. So I'm feeling more confident doing the standardized recipes. Learning to recalculate the proper amounts for recipes and use state procedures. And we served like 500 extra students and an additional serving time for United Way, so that was a success. Grandparents Week in September down at the grade school, we did an additional 168 meals. We received a local food and schools grant where I tried to use our beef cost from Elmwood Packing, but was not able to do that because they could not provide exactly where the cow was. So the state provided me a list of farmers that I could use, and on that list, I saw Katie DeWolf slash Carruthers now, Katie Carruthers. Katie DeWolf was a graduate of Ellenwood High School, so her farm was on that list. So I reached out to her, and we have purchased some ground beef, 700 pounds worth, because of the grant. We've tried many new items on our menus. The best one I feel most accomplished is our salad bar. We are now doing romaine lettuce all the way through. The students are eating it just fine. So, so it's an accomplishment. The girls know that I'm picky about certain things, and so it looks really good. So that's always an improvement. The kids, we tried homemade ranch at the beginning of the school year. The kids did not like it. And so we are back to the original plan. So that's fine. Everything is, cut and, if they like it, we'll bring it back. We've tried veggie dippers, Catalina veggies, loaded mashed potatoes, Capri blend, Fiestada pizza slash taco pizza is making a big hit. We did our second annual, or not annual, but anyways, Friendsgiving. It's our meal right before Thanksgiving. And so tried a new pumpkin dessert this year. So we could have our fruit element. We did a pumpkin sauce. And so served that with some whipped topping and a little graham cracker. So the kids loved it. Tried fresh strawberries and kiwis here at the high school. That was a hit. Many other things. I just don't want to bore you guys with all that. But it's a great accomplishment. And let's see here. Okay, I said that one. So right before our break, our last meal will be breakfast for lunch. So we're going to have biscuits and gravy with hash browns. So something new. So we'll see how that goes.
That one.
So you'll have a hit with it.
And December 17th, we're gonna try a burrito bowl, to where we'll treat it like Chipotle. The kid will come in, put in hamburger, choice of rice, choice of beans, and at the end of the line, they can choose either chips or taco shell, tortilla shell. So looking forward to seeing how that goes. That's December 17th, if you'd like to join us. And let's see here. The next school year for 2025, we'll have some challenges with the new procedures of nutrition guidelines coming down. Less sodium, of course, less sugar with that. There is talk of no flavored milk. So unless the producer, like Highland, adjusts their recipe, things could look different for next year. I did figure up some numbers for us. So we have served altogether for 173 days, 72,370 meals. And that's including summertime, because we had such an incredible summer. But just school days, which is 132 days, 59,314 meals. So that is quite the accomplishment, I feel like, for our girls.
What have you been doing in your spare time?
Cooking. I cook at the hotel, I cook with the American Legion, so cooking, always. But I love it, so it's fun. So you guys have any questions?
I would just throw it out there, I commend you for finding a local, maybe not a local farm, but an Ellenwood local for
Yeah.
using that grant money. I mean, I don't know how much effort that took on your part, but
Yeah.
kudos to you for doing that. I think
Yeah,
that's
thank
great.
you. Thank you. Well, it was a group effort with Susie too, because she helped out with 2 nights. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I look forward to new things. Want to do a new cycle of menus, so looking forward to that, so, yeah, homework. Thank you.
We've got 39 doors installed, which they're all up here at the high school and middle school. We're waiting to do the grade school until after the bond and the new doors get put in. The new system is 1,000 times better than what we had. The good parts about it is it's out of the cloud, so when they release new stuff, you don't have to buy an entire new system. Like the controller is all cloud-based. So like as new things come out, like they just released facial recognition on our readers that have cameras. So you just walk up to a door, it reads your face and opens the door. So it's a little slow right now. I think it'll get faster once it's in beta right now. But you can use your phone to open it. You can go up and knock on it with your phone. It opens the door. The kids are all, one thing that we've got is that restrooms are locked during the day. The kids use their numbers to get in. It takes their picture. Mike has had no restroom issues this year. Like we've had no sinks ripped off the walls. We've had nothing because
That's awesome.
it's just way better.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be working over Christmas break on getting more of the middle school, high school doors done. I've still got the west side, the upstairs, science, up in it's really a lot better going keyless because you don't have to carry your keys. Like I can just, my watch will let me in, so I can just walk up to a door and it'll open it. It's a lot better than having keys.
You're gonna have to key back with some of these.
That's right. We prepared the new staff members' technology, freshman Chromebooks. Freshmen get new Chromebooks every year, or the upcoming freshmen get new Chromebooks every year. Right now, I'm working on Power School software. We just rolled out School Messenger. Today at 11, they sent out the text to everybody we had in our system. We've had 295, I think, opt-in, or I guess I have it. 295 pending, 290 opted in, 7 opted out. So today, 7 people didn't want to receive our messages, they opted out. The good thing is that when we send something out and they say, well, we didn't get that, we have records that show like everything that we sent, they didn't want it, so.
And Brian, they can still opt back in another point, correct, if they choose to do so?
Yeah, they just have to reply why.
Okay.
It's a whole lot better system. It's going to take some good use to. We haven't been trained yet. We kind of just got jumped into it. The main part we're working on right now is just the one-way communication, and we've got that all set up now with the texting. And it'll do phone calls. Great Bend also uses it, so it's kind of nice that we're now on the same systems. It does phone calls so they can record a message, send out a voice message, text, emails, and then it'll automatically post to social media. The next step for that is my Power Hub is already set up. I just have to learn about it. Power School, they have a engineering team. They set everything up for you, and they don't tell you what it does. You have to go through trainings, and it's completely separate. We'll roll out the School Messenger Communicate, which is the two-way communication, and then Safe Arrivals currently being set up where a parent can get on the app if your kid's not going to be at school. Like next Thursday, they have a doctor's appointment, they can put it in there, and then it automates the absence. You put the reason, so it's a lot less work on the secretaries. I'm also getting ready to replace all of our battery backups in the district on our network racks. We just purchased those with E-rate money for the 24-25 E-rate money. They were $10,816. Our E-rate reimbursement rate is 70%, so we ended up paying $3,467.57. We have $76,174.04 remaining in our E-rate Category 2 budget. This is the last, 25-26 is the last year I can use that money before you start a new cycle. So we'll be working to expend that entire 74,000 this upcoming year. I'm looking at new switches. Our core switch is from 2013, it needs replaced. Our access points just turned 5, so they will get replaced. And then we're also gonna bid redoing our fiber between the two buildings and our fiber here in the high school. Our fiber here in the high school was put in 2005 when they built the new addition. We need to be like looking 5-10 years down the road that when stuff is gonna be, our current infrastructure is all running 1 gigabyte per second. We're gonna up it to 10, but I wanna put fiber in place that'll do 25, 50, or 100 for 10, 15 years from now. And the fiber that we have going between our buildings is in the air. We're gonna get a bid on putting it in the ground. In case a tree or something would fall on it, it would complete, right now, if a tree fell on the fiber, it would completely shut off the grade school. No phones, no internet, no nothing. So, but that fiber was put in before, I don't even know when they put it in.
And
What?
who is that?
Pre-99.
Yeah.
Who is that with, the fiber?
We own our fiber.
You own your own fiber?
Yeah, between the two buildings.
Can I get on my own? 1 gigabyte a second?
The REAP grant this year was $48,474. I have $29,288 of that left. So far, I've spent money from that on staff laptops. Our staff's on a 4-year rotation. Cable and surface rates for door access controls hardware, and network hardware. The next thing I'll be looking at is Chromebooks for our 25-26 freshmen. Cybersecurity. I've been sending out the security awareness newsletter every month. CISA does weekly scanning on our external IPs to make sure we don't have any holes. We also are doing a new phishing campaign initiative with we're continuing it from last year. Starting in November through May, we purchased $1,789 in prizes, and so we do monthly simulations, and then they use the fish hook in NovaFort to report them, and then the successful people from each month, we're going to do little mini drawings, but then if you're successful from November to May, you'll be able to get drawn for these bigger prizes. And so for this one we just did in November, we had 49 people successfully reported, and that number is up from 6. When we first started, it was 6 people. So it's a huge improvement on people being more looking and making sure they're not clicking on stuff. This last one we did in November, we had 6% click on the link and 3% entered data. So that is about 6 people clicked and 3 people entered. So we want to get that entered data down to 0 because they shouldn't be entering anything. But the people that do it are not really significant to the district. Like they're like a coach or something, clicks a link and puts stuff in.
I'm sure they'll be glad to do that.
That's what he
You want
meant,
like
but yes.
pretty private information.
True tag.
Got it.
Our live streaming in 2024, we had 37,272 views, and they watched 7,138 hours of video. That's about all I got.
Very good.
I hear a lot of compliments on our streaming and the availability of all of our activities, so
Yeah, we probably
That's great.
stream more than any other school, I'd say.
I think it's appreciated by a lot of
Yeah.
people.
I have family members in other states that watch the different things.
Thank you, Ryan.
Ryan, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You do an amazing job. Hope you guys enjoy that. We try to do that at the December meeting every year. It's nice to hear from them as opposed to me trying to directly hear their stories. So,
We'll move on down to consent agenda.
Okay, we have some gifts to the district. Library Foundation donated $1,000 and $220 to Grade School Movie Day and the History Club Field Trip respectively. And then we also have 3 roasters from food service that we're looking to get rid of as far as surplus property. 3 of them don't work anymore, and so that is gifts to the district and surplus property. And then we also have, and I just put this, we have to do this at some point. I put it on the consent agenda, Piper Sandler Financial Services Agreement. I did amend this. A board member brought to my attention one section that sounded maybe a little bit disadvantageous to the district legally, and I did a little bit more research. I actually reached out to Piper Sandler to maybe ask, well, why is the language this way? Also talked to KSB, had Luke Sober review it. I believe it is section 8, VIII, for those of you that are familiar with Roman numerals. That is something that it basically left it open-ended and was very broad in terms of protecting Piper Sandler. Of course, my agreement's not coming up here. But ultimately, I am scratching that, I'm eliminating that, so section 8 is eliminated. It basically said they get full remuneration if at any point they decide to terminate the agreement. In other words, if they decide, they had to give 30-day notice, and then if they decide to terminate the agreement, the fees become fully due and payable immediately. And ultimately, that begs the question, well, what happens if we sign this and you just say, well, we're just going to end it right now, well, then we don't get your services. There are a couple practical things. One, that's never happened. I asked them, what would happen if you guys were to leverage that? And he said it's never happened before. So he really didn't have any history on what could potentially occur. Also, too, there'd be obvious reputational harm if an entity went to a school district and tried to leverage, we're not going to provide service when we're full payment, that there would be significant harm to their brand. And also, they cannot be paid out of operating funds. These fees must come from bond proceeds. So if they don't actually carry this to completion, and we don't get the bond proceeds through other laws and state statutes, they can't get paid. So, but I do think that I visited with Luke at KSB. He felt like he was a little bit perplexed as to why the wording was that open-ended. And I will say, I'm sure at some point there's a reason. Something happened and there's a reason why they have that. But if you look at that, I've got that part scratched. I worked with Piper Sandler to try to get a clean document, and this all happened today. This was all in real time. And he was on the road, he couldn't do it. He said, if you guys just want to scratch that, approve it. I've got it eliminated as per email with Clayton Kelly from Piper Sandler on 12/9/2024 at 2:27. Eliminate that. I changed the remaining Roman numerals, and I think that's something that we can then approve. I'll leave it to the board member if they want to, who brought it to my attention, if they want to add anything to it, but I feel like it's been adequately addressed and our interests are further protected.
Yeah, that's why I know, so it was just funny wording,
Probably enforceable, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the consent agenda, a little bit unique this month, but again, mostly all procedural really. That's all I have on that.
I move we approve the consent agenda with the amendments to section 8, term of agreement of the Piper Sandler financial agreement as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the amendments to section 8, term of agreement of Piper Sandler Financial Services Agreement as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Done strategic plan, budget update.
Okay, if you look at the budget update for this month, you obviously see some good news. If you look at the 5th green box down in the middle of the page, you might have to zoom in a little bit to look at that. That last green box says we have 75.1% of our budget remaining for this fiscal year, as opposed to this time last year we had 74%, so we're ahead by 1.1%, which is good. If you take a look at some of our expenditures and restricted use funds, again, capital outlay includes the bus, so that's distorted by about $320,000. Food service is right on track, which is good. Special ed a little bit higher, I think that was due to when we actually make the payments, so, well, it is higher, it's not significantly higher, it's just the reporting time. Vocational ed, right on track, and then our overall unencumbered cash balance actually a little bit up. So, feel good with where we're at on the budget. Operating expenses, we're actually ahead of where we were at this point last year, which is good. And all in all, I feel, in so much as it can be this year, our budget's in solid structural shape. Any questions on the budget? That's all I have on that, Madam President.
I'll move on to old business, board policy updates.
Okay, if you guys, hopefully you guys have had a chance to mull on these for a month, look them over. Again, I know this isn't overly exciting. This is one of the more tedious tasks I have because I've got to cross-reference the recommendations not with their model policy but with our policies. So it does take me a little bit of time. I don't know if you guys had any questions on that. There really isn't much controversial. The very first one was changing the early graduation, which is what we talked about. That really wasn't a KSB recommendation. The big one is the change to non-resident enrollment. And now we have some more restrictions based off of good standing that we can use to prevent people from coming in the beginning, not just from renewing their enrollment year over year. Other than that, I think most of it is pretty straightforward. I did visit with Craig and Whitney a little bit, gave them some time to review the information. They didn't have any questions. I don't know if they want to speak to anything they found. Again, I know this is kind of dry to some extent. You largely have to trust your administrative team on most of this, but I don't know if Craig or Whitney, you guys have anything to add on what you looked at?
Don't have anything that, I mean, I definitely didn't have any concerns or questions. It looked like a lot of definitions and things were updated.
Yep.
Very procedural.
They did have workman's comp got changed a little bit, some of the terms there, and that was in a statutory change, they aligned that. Really the big one was the non-resident enrollment, and I didn't really want to change that in the moment because we were already collecting applications there, so I felt like it'd be best if we just collect it and then next time we updated it, we would get caught up with that. So other than that, hopefully you guys had a chance to review that over the last month. I don't have any questions or I don't have any other comments, and we'll need final action at the point you guys approve this. I'll update our board policy books, update our policies online, and that becomes the law of the district effective when you take that action.
One question.
Yes.
On the early graduation,
Uh-huh.
what was the thinking behind changing that from board to superintendent?
Just so you guys didn't have to deal with it, we wouldn't have to bring it to you guys. A lot of times, it's mostly done at the building level. I even contemplated just having building administration do it. They traditionally work up a plan, they do all the requirements, they come to me, and then instead of me having to put it on the agenda, then they have to wait for a decision from you guys, I would just say, yep, I give it my blessing and we move on. And I don't ever envision probably turning someone down. I mean, there might be and really I'm gonna largely go off the recommendation on the building level.
Do you remember when we had that letter from one student that went into a lot of detail about why the student was requesting for early graduation? I'm reading this thinking, this is not a Board of Education decision. This is giving us way too much information about a student, and we don't have that ability to even make that decision. Do you remember that? That's been what?
It was at the beginning of the year.
It was May, roughly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Al, I don't know if you have anything to add, but
June, yeah, it was something that we spoke to, Debbie, I do remember that conversation, because we followed up several times, because we're getting to that point where that student is reaching the deadline that we discussed, and that some of that was private information, and we didn't want to share all of that in an open records forum, that we thought it could be handled in-house pretty well, and respect the privacy, because some of the requirements, and they are very personal, and that way we could afford them the steps to be able to make the request without having to share it with everyone on the internet and whoever goes back and reads all the records.
And I assume that you would look to her to make the recommendation.
Yeah,
for
and we
him.
still have requirements too. It's not like it's just open. They have to meet certain criteria, but the way it was written was, they have to meet certain criteria, then they make the recommendation to the superintendent is presented to the board, then the board, who really doesn't have a lot of background on the individual student, and then is getting some very personal information in order to make that judgment, which becomes to some extent open record, depending on what degree we go to. We felt like it's best just to more kind of keep it internal at the building level, and to be honest with you, like I said, I contemplated having the building principal have the final say as well, and I felt like maybe just to kind of appease some people who may feel like there needs to be another set of eyes on the application, send it up to the superintendent. Ultimately, though, it's the counselor and the principal are gonna make the decision. If they say, because the first question I ask even before I bring it to the board is, what's the circumstance, why is this being requested, and give me sort of the perspective and rationale. And it's almost, I think we've had one instance where there was, and even then now, probably could have done it differently.
Well, originally, you know, I think back in time,
Yeah,
it was really, you know, my time, it was really frowned upon that this request was made
yeah.
in that manner. So I wondered if it was put in place that way to make it even harder.
I think that's a good point. I think this is probably a vestige from an era where that was pretty rare and it rose to the level of maybe board involvement. I think that's a fair point. In other words, probably really, prior to maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, graduating early was really rare, really rare.
It was
And maybe they've-
rare, it was discouraged.
Yeah,
I remember previous students that came in.
yeah,
I remember that.
yeah. And maybe they felt like it does rise to the level of board involvement. I feel like recently it's more very practical stuff like, I'm not gonna give specific examples, but just, it makes complete sense for them to graduate early. And like I said, to be honest with you, I mean, I think it's good to have another set of eyes on it, just so it doesn't become too routine. But if the counselor and the building principal, they meet the requirements, they put the plan together, and they say, if this needs to happen, then I'll just stamp it and go from there. This way you guys don't have to. And also too, a lot of times, sometimes that's time sensitive a little bit, and depending on the circumstance, that it doesn't behoove them to have to wait for the next board meeting. So that just allows us to get it to move forward. Does that kind of answer your question,
Yeah,
Steve? Or,
I was just curious
Yeah.
what it was and knowing the history of this topic.
yep,
I was curious.
that's a good question. So I would entertain a motion or request a motion to approve the board policy updates. And I've got a list of them there as presented, so if you ever need a reference, you can kind of look back and see, or if you will look through our policy book.
I move we approve the board policy update as presented. As presented this week. Do I need to read all that?
No, no,
Okay,
no,
all right.
just the motion, yep. That's to reference, when we say as presented, if someone needs to reference that, there's the as presented information.
Can we have a motion to approve the board policy updates as presented? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Bond issue update.
Okay, I've got a timetable of actions, and that's the first item that I've attached. And tonight, we do need to approve the authorizing sale resolution, which we'll do in the next step. And then there's some work that's done by our bond counsel, like on the 10th and 11th, so those distribution dates. That's actually going to be done by Gilmore Bell, not us. I didn't put that on. Same thing with notice of bond sale to the local newspaper, Kansas Register. Gilmore Bell handles that. The big thing, the next step for us on the financial side is January 7th, conference call with rating agency. I'll probably have Brian sit in with me on that. Sometimes board presidents do. Whitney, I'll leave that up to you if you want to be a part of that. But in order for us to sell bonds, we have to be rated with a credit rating by the agency. And we'll do a conference call. There's some questions I have to answer in advance of that. And sometimes, like I said, the only person really that has to be there is the superintendent. But if I'm going to include Brian just for another set of eyes, and Whitney, if you want to be, well, that's fine. But January 7th, conference call with the rating agency, with me doing some advanced work up to that. We will, about a week after that, we'll receive our actual bond rating. That will determine what interest rates we'll have to charge to get people to purchase or to offer. And then after that, there's a couple procedural items, and then the February 10th meeting is a big one because that's where the bond sale will occur that day, and we'll have the final documents. You guys will have to approve the official bond offering and a resolution for the bond offering. That's kind of the final step from the board's perspective. And then March 6th is when they'll close, and I've got to do some work with a holding bank prior to that, who's going to actually receive the money and hold it for us and then pay it out as the projects, as we get invoiced for projects. But February 10th is really the last step for the board. Prior to that, I'm going to be working with some banks. And then March 6th is when it truly closes. We'll receive proceeds and go from there. That's the financial side. On the project side, we've got a tentative timeline there, and I worked with the architect on this. We really we spent about an hour and a half talking about all the different dynamics. Can you do these projects while they're in school? Do you have to modify and disrupt, or can they not be done in school at all? And then also too, can they be done simultaneously? Can the roof project be done simultaneously with the HVAC project? So after working out those details, we've come up with a plan that I think is pretty good and efficient. Spring of 2025, which is approximately May or April or May of this school year, window and door replacement in grade school. That's going to get started pretty quickly. That's why we're having that meeting on December 18th. Summer of this school year, 2025, approximately May-ish after school's out, we're going to do the roof replacement throughout the district, starting with the EGS library, then doing middle school, high school. And then next summer, which is probably the most involved project, the HVAC replacement at the middle school, high school, particularly in this wing with our potential VRF system. That's going to involve maybe tearing out some walls, creating some new access to the equipment, removing the current equipment, which is not readily accessible, and then the secure entrance projects, a little bit of construction out at the grade school. The one at the middle school, high school will be simple, but they're going to bid it together and do it when they come out. So that will be done in the summer of 2026, which is a year from this coming summer. So that's kind of the time frame, that's the outline. Architect felt like that was probably the best. That also has the benefit of, outside of a couple of exceptions, shouldn't disrupt the learning environment, shouldn't disrupt school, and then theoretically by summer of 2026, we're good to go. We bought ourselves another 25, 30 years, and we'll figure out what we need to do.
So are we confident that our HVAC's going to make it until summer of 2026?
You see that face?
Yeah,
Yes, we are.
depends on how you define confident. Do I think we can drag it across the finish line if necessary? I think we could, if we have to spend a little money. I do think with the work we're doing on the boiler currently and the work we just did on the chiller, I like to think that should make it, get us to where we need to go. We're always gonna have problems. I mean, it's 50-some years old, 60-some years old. But ultimately, that's about the old, we'll have to do that project during the summer. And we feel like the roofs need to get fixed now because that's gonna cause some bigger problems. I asked, could the roofs be done simultaneously with the HVAC, and they said those contractors probably would not work well with each other because, well, we're up here for this, we're up here for this, and it felt like that would not be good. So we felt like it was in the best interest to just grind out the HVAC, make it work. And I will say, the big issue with the HVAC is in this wing. The rest of the wings, we can grind it out and make it work. It's this system that has given us the problem. And I will say too, to be honest with you, probably half the days, particularly in the spring and fall, we don't even need a lot of climate control. It's in the dead of winter and the heat of summer. So we'll have to grind it out a little bit, but to your question, it is not going to be easy. But we'll do the best we can, and we'll get started on it. So really excited about it. Any questions, I guess, on the update as far as timetable and timeline? And I guess I would ask one question here too. What are your general thoughts on who receives our bond proceeds? And where I'm going with this is typically you have banks bid on it. It's your local banks, and then Security Bank of Kansas City is kind of a default that handles a lot of these. They typically give higher rates, and because they're so familiar with it, the drawdowns, the whole logistics of it are very simple. You say it, they take care of it. They've got a whole department dedicated to that. I'm kind of mixed here. We're gonna bid it out. Normally, I want us to keep it local, because we're gonna have about $9 million in funds, once I explain everything. We're gonna have about $9 million in funds that we're gonna deposit. And that's obviously a not so insignificant sum. We're not talking about our traditional state aid payment of $150,000. I would prefer to keep that money local as much as we can. The only thing that gives me pause is, at that amount, if a bank from Kansas City comes in 0.5% higher, or even 1% higher, you're not talking a small amount now. That's another $45,000 at 0.5%, another $90,000 at 1%. That's $90,000 worth of projects, reduced mill levy, whatever else we want to do. So let's say, for example, Peoples or Sunflower want to bid on it. And again, my preference is to keep it local. I feel like that just builds a lot of goodwill. They do a lot for us. It's our own money that we're collecting anyway. But there is some caveats to that, because we're not talking about, well, by going local, we lose $10,000 or $5,000 or $3,000. If we lose almost $100,000, is that worth it going local? And there is no right answer. I just, philosophically, you guys lean one way or the other. We don't necessarily have to go with the high bid here. We have a lot, in fact, if I understand correctly, we don't have to bid it out at all. Just pay someone to go. Most districts do that. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I'm very staunch with keeping it local. We have two great banks here,
Okay?
and if we can keep it local, I mean, I get it for losing 100K,
Yeah.
then maybe, but if we're talking about,
Sure, and I'm just using that as an example.
yeah, I guess.
Sunflower or Peoples may come in higher,
Yeah,
too.
but if we can keep it local, I mean, they do a lot for us locally.
Yeah.
And it just always keep it local, no matter what we're doing, we can keep it local. It's always, I'm always an advocate for that, but that's, I guess sometimes that isn't, the practicality of the situation doesn't call for that, but if we can, that would be my hope.
Steve, Jeff, something?
Oh, well, I kind of agree with John on that, but I do question what a local bank is anymore.
Right.
There's merit to that as well. Yeah.
You have one that's based out of Salina, and you have one that's based out of McPherson.
Yeah.
So local is a branch, not the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's still as local as we're gonna get.
Yeah. I guess, and I don't need a decision now, but as we put out bids, and it doesn't even really require board approval, I guess we could, but as long as I kind of know the will of the board, it sounds like maybe we lean towards local unless the percent gets a little high.
I'm not sure where the threshold there is.
Yeah, I know there isn't one.
Right.
Yeah, because it's, I think it's right, we should lean towards local, and, just in general, local governments, and you want to pay some more for local, but on the other side of the fence is, you can't pay a whole bunch more to local, because that's a burden on the taxpayers.
Yeah.
So I didn't answer your question, but I think it is really looking at the differences that there might be
The dollar amount.
and making a decision.
So really the magnitude of the difference, and again, that's assuming there is a difference. And remember, this is where, when we receive the bond project, we sell the bonds, we receive $9 million, we have to deposit it somewhere. And then we use that on drawdowns, like when we get an invoice, we then reach out to that entity and they cut a check and away it goes. So there's also a customer service element to that as well, like a bank that does that all the time, and yep, this is what we do in our department. And then one that, maybe isn't, they'll do it, we do at least purchase locally. But may not be as convenient, but I just wanted to kind of get a feel for, again, I didn't even think of that, Steve, that makes some sense anymore, what is local,
yeah.
just because you have a branch there.
They're all that way.
Doesn't necessarily mean the local's even getting that much benefit, but I get your point. So what I might do then is you guys be thinking about that, and as some of these things come in, I might just contact you individually. You respond to me individually, saying what your preference is, and then, and maybe too, if it gets, unique enough to where it requires board action, maybe we'll just bring it back and say what you guys want to do. But again, also too, I don't want to necessarily have all these special meetings or have to wait. I mean, if ultimately there is a consensus around something and it comes in and meets that, then maybe I just sign off and go from there. So.
I would also like to understand, when you're talking to each of those banks, what they do for FDIC insurance.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's.
This would have to be secured by pledges. In other words, like, in order to keep any school funds, they have to have pledged securities in the amount, in the full amount of what they're receiving. And that would be part of the specs for the bid. If you can't do that, then you
Right.
can't, yeah, you can't.
So I know that Peoples does something different that's with Intrify, which is a whole nother thing that they don't have to. But I don't know what Sunflower does.
Sure, and that is, I do get that question a lot, like what are some of the requirements in order to receive this money? And you have to have pledged securities in the full amount, which means if something happens, they have securities to be able to pay you. And if they don't have that, then they can't even be considered. So, yeah, very, very good point. That's all I have in the update. Do you guys have any questions on that? Whitney, unless it displeases you or the board, we might just move into the next one right away, because we're kind of talking about that anyway. The next thing is actually what we have to do at this meeting, which is the bond issue resolution. This authorizes the sale of bonds. It says, okay, we've had our election, it's time to authorize the sale. I don't know if you guys had a chance to read through that resolution, but basically, you're authorizing that resolution, which says, yes, we can sell bonds, we have the authority to do so, and we plan to do so. If you approve that, we'll have Whitney sign that and go from there. I do want to give you guys some time. This is the attachment that did not attach, and I do apologize. This is just, again, legalese and technicality. Certificate deeming preliminary official statement final. Preliminary final, those are words that usually don't go together. This is basically you guys coming around the consensus that the estimated numbers here are final and it's all right to go with them so they can start bidding on this stuff. It's not a final number and it can get confusing, and it's not going to get to be final until actually proposals are received and we narrow it down. But I do want you guys to kind of take a look at that last attachment. And again, I apologize. I've been trying to keep all of these documents straight, and I thought I had it, and then I'm reviewing. I'm like, oh gosh, you guys didn't get that. So let's take some time to look at that.
Yeah, but
The very last one, it says USD 355 Series 2025 8.55 mm. You see that?
Yep.
Now, if you look on that very first page, what do you notice? It says par amount 8.5 million, premium 556,000. That is what these investment banks will pay us to be the authorized seller of these bonds. And it has the net effect of paying off some of these additional costs and then ultimately reducing the amount of tax levy we have to receive the requisite funds to eventually pay this off. Does that make sense? So they're actually going to give us that premium. This is all estimated numbers now. They just use an estimate. These banks will bid, and we get to select the one we want. Whoever has the highest premium, maybe someone will have 600,000 in premium, 700,000. They pay us that, and then that can be put towards these other fees and costs that come with the project. And then whatever's left after that, which is always more than that, we can then use that to reduce the mill levy and not have to raise tax to pay for that.
So they're gonna give us 12% of the total project cost, the total amount.
Yeah, whatever that amount is, yeah.
Roughly 12%.
Yep, yep,
They're gonna give us 12% in order to
yep.
sell it,
Yeah.
to be the ones to sell it for us.
We are not borrowing any more than 8.5 million. This is something separate. So when you look at that and it says bond proceeds, you're like, because that's the first thing I saw, I'm like, so, and I kind of had an idea, I'm like, so is this basically the premium we're paid so that they get the right to sell these bonds to investors? And the answer is yes. And then that money can be used to pay off these fees and then reduce the amount of levy that we have to levy the taxpayer to raise money in order to pay off the bonds. So, and that's just a part of the process. This is a final number. Once we actually get what the actual proposals are and you guys select one, we will get a final number for you. And then you'll know exactly what the premium is. All these numbers become official. Now, the cost of issuance, all those round numbers, I don't believe that changes at all. I think that's all standard fees. But as far as like when you start getting to like the coupon, interest, debt service, that's going to change a little bit based off of what we get. And then if you go to the last page where it talks about maturity date, amount, rate, yield, price, yield to maturity, call date, call price, discount premium. See, that's using those estimates. That will become firm, and then you guys have to approve that as well. John, you had a question? I didn't mean to not answer you.
They pay us $556,000 because somehow issuing this bond at a certain interest rate, they actually go make more money
They do.
somehow. That's
That's correct.
they take the risk on that, but they're going to make that.
That's what blows my mind, is they're willing to pay us 12% so they can issue these bonds. Because they think they're gonna make money,
Yeah.
plus make their investors money, like, where is all this?
Right.
Yeah.
This is why people go to prison for years.
Sure. Does anyone have questions on that? And then again, too, this is where, really what you're saying here is, you don't have to take action on this. This is just giving Whitney permission, saying, yes, these final estimates are reasonably close, to go out, take it to the vendor and say, now build a proposal around this. Give us some final things. And it basically is the board's consensus through their board president saying, yep, that, and well, I mean, what do they title that document there? The certificate deeming sale final. Let me bring it up here. It basically authorizes Whitney to sign that document. I guess I've got it right here in hard copy form. Preliminary official statement final. So the preliminary estimates are final, and you can move forward with sending those estimates to entities to build an official proposal. Does that kind of make sense?
In a
And-
nutshell.
And this is all, like I said, highly procedural. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm on top of it. I know I may not have described it well, but I feel like I've got a firm grasp on it. I think that in looking at the document here, the estimate they used, because I asked what was the ultimate interest rate, and you gotta net it out of that premium. I think it was like it's right at 4.4%. It's that all-in, and on the where's it at? On the second to back page, where it says the all-in TIC. If you go to the second last page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The seventh line down where it says all-in TIC, 4.42%. That's the net interest rate. Net of that premium that we can use, that effectively reduces the interest rate because we have that money already, is right at 4.422%. At the February meeting, I'm going to bring Clayton Kelly here, and he is going to present to you guys the actual numbers, what it means, how it's going to look in terms of, payback and all that stuff. They're going to walk through the entire process with final official proposal numbers that you guys can act on then.
And he was the financier that was here.
That's correct. Yep, very knowledgeable, has helped walk me through some of the legalese and some of the minutia of this. But I'm with him though. I mean, I think he's pleased working with me because I think he knows I have a sense for some of this. So ultimately, does anyone have objection to allowing Whitney to sign off on the certificate?
We're just glad it's Whitney signing.
And then the other thing is you guys do have to authorize the resolution. They can't move forward until you authorize the resolution. And that's the motion that I have listed here. That's really all I have on that.
So, I move we approve resolution number 12-24-1, a resolution authorizing the offering for sale of general obligation bonds, Series 2025 of United School District number 355, Barton County, Kansas, Ellenwood, as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution number 1224-1, a resolution authorizing the offering for sale of general obligation bonds, Series 2025 of Unified School District number 355, Barton County, Kansas, Ellenwood, as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
And we're gonna have that excerpt of the minutes that we're gonna have to make sure we fill all the information, so make sure you have that all correct, because that, we need to spell out who made the motion, who made the second, all that good stuff. Yep.
Bring us down to new business.
I did put this data item in. I wanted you guys to maybe look at the presentation that was given to Greenbush and Orion for high-performing districts. This is something that KSB has been following, as you guys well know, for the last couple of years. They did a meta-analysis on it and started coming to some conclusions. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at this. But, they did a research project that talks about the purpose of that, identify measurable outcomes for student and district success, consider both current status and improvement over time, account for differences in student population, identify districts significantly exceeding expectations, interview leaders about how they achieve those results. And ultimately, that's where we've kind of begun our process. We've been visiting other districts, trying to find out, you know, how do they exceed their number and what are they doing. They've got some data there. Talks about how each additional education level equals higher average income throughout the state, and I think that it's pretty intuitive. Obviously, you know, less than high school graduates going to make you know, the least amount. Graduate professional degrees probably going to make the most, generally speaking. They talk about higher education attainment correlated with higher average state personal income. So they also, you know, look at just across Kansas in general. There's a lot of data there. I'm not going to necessarily go over all of it with you. Here's where they start tying in like information as it relates to state assessments. And again, I know that's always a hot topic, and you know, to what extent do you place emphasis on state assessments? But they do talk about, like here they've got a couple of graphs. I'm right in the middle here. Variation of current results, impact of high need students. Some key findings: strong negative correction between high need students and current results in each outcome in each enrollment group. Much greater variation from projected results among smaller districts, which would be expected. Much less correlation between student needs and results when looking at change over time, sometimes even opposite, which is interesting. Let's see here, there was, I think, if you go down to, I think I'm on page 21, traits of high success districts. This is ultimately cutting to the chase here. What are some common themes with districts that far exceed expectation? Intensity, intentionality, urgency, and clear goals. Change in attitude, culture before change in results. That was the first step. I mean, I kind of was aware of that before I even had to receive this. Status quo is not acceptable. Need to keep getting better, even if perceived to be doing well. Clear, measurable actionable goals. Increased and fearless use of data, and this is something we really struggle with. We need to create some time to do this. Accept validity of state outcomes data and add to it. Time and staff support for using data at every level, from school board to classroom to individual students. Don't just, quote unquote, trust your instincts. Compare results to standards. Other schools and districts progress over time. So anyway, hopefully you guys get a chance to, you know, look at some of this. Again, I'm not going to go into it in a lot of detail, but as we progress in our school improvement plans and our school improvement actions, you're going to see probably a lot of parallelism with some of these districts here. Obviously, we're going to these districts to find out what they're doing, but I think hopefully some of the stuff that we're doing aligns with this research and supports, you know, what has been done in other districts. I like to think that some of that is replicatable, so to speak, and it's something that we can repeat and not have to just reinvent the wheel completely on our own. I will say this, and you know, we had this discussion today, regardless of whether we like it or not, there is going to be somewhat of an emphasis on state assessments because that is what everything is based on. You know, when they do these analyses, it is, when they talk about student achievement, that is a proxy for state assessment. And that's just what they do, fairly or unfairly, rightly or wrongly. That is what they're looking at when they, you know, look at outcomes relative to, you know, assessments. That they're talking about the state assessment. They're not talking about local grades. They're not talking about ACT. So as we move forward, we're going to have to understand that that's, you know, just probably part of the deal. They start on here on page 24 and 25, more traits of high success districts. Quick response and more options for struggling students. Key use of data response at first sign of students falling behind. Some form of MTSS. Allow enrichment and advancement for students who are on track, which is sometimes something that gets overlooked. High school start intervention before students fall behind in credits. On the next page, high love and high expectations. Students face unprecedented social, behavior, and health issues. High success districts increase mental health, character education, social and emotional learning. Help necessary for academic learning, but not a substitute for it. High success districts do both. Maintain our race standards. Lower expectations do not help at-risk students. They internalize lower expectations. I mean, again, I'll let you read all that stuff. They've got a couple of other pages where they talk about the traits. So some things that we're looking at, and you know, this stuff we bring to you guys isn't random. It's based off of research. It's showing what other districts are doing as we visit. How are you guys getting these outcomes? What are you doing? so we can maybe, again, I hate to use the word copy, but maybe we can learn from them and implement some of those things they've been doing in their own district. The second one I attached there was the results from the Kansas Task Force, a Blue Ribbon Task Force on cell phones and screen time. I'm sure you guys have probably heard of that, and these are actually the recommendations. You gotta zoom in there and look at that, but if you open that document up, you can kind of see some of the things that they've discussed. I believe at tomorrow's state board meeting, they're supposed to codify those and make them official. These are not mandates, these are not requirements, this is an advisory committee. The districts have asked KSD for help on some of these things. They're saying, how can we deal with this as a system, as a state? And as a result, they created this task force and said, here's some recommendations. And I believe on that task force, they had students, they had staff, they had administrators, teachers, all kind of a cross-section of school officials, including students, to try to tackle this problem. It's not going away, it's a mega problem. I think it is a significant barrier to student achievement, and they've now come out, like I said, with these recommendations that schools have requested to try to help aid in their efforts to get students to achieve to a greater extent.
Back to your State Board of Education, is it reasonable to expect, as Whitney was talking about, potentially, if going forward, it falls back to each state to make the determination for federal aid, coming back to our school districts, that they tie what we get to our assessment scores?
They could, here's the thing. The technical answer to your question is, yes, they can do that, without a doubt. As a practical and political matter, that would be almost like the third rail, and I don't know if many politicians would want to touch that, or officials would want to touch that. There was some talk about, back in the No Child Left Behind days, about how you raise accountability and how do you put teeth to it. And one of the ways is, well, if you don't meet certain thresholds, then we're going to withhold funding. Again, as a point of law, I think they could probably do that.
Don't some states do something similar to that? And I want to say Texas, for some reason, that
I'm
they
not sure, to be honest.
tie something together with their assessment.
They might. Now, there are some requirements you have to meet in terms of policy implementation. In other words, you have to do certain things, like food service was a big one for a while there, but you have to do certain things, and if you choose not to do them, you can forego funding. It has never, I don't believe, again, I'm speaking out of turn here, maybe other states have done this, at least in Kansas, I don't believe there's ever been a big push to say, if you don't meet these thresholds, we're going to withhold funding. But again, to your point, could they do it under the right legislative environment? Possibly. It's just politically, especially for those legislators that are coming from areas that would suffer, they would have to then go and wind up voting for the stuff that's hurting their constituents. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Where it really gets hairy is when they want to use it for evaluation of teachers, and whether or not districts can, solely get rid of teachers for that, or do we, maybe look at a model where we're going to hold schools accountable, and if you don't meet certain thresholds, we're going to give you more restrictions, more intensive intervention at the state level because you're not meeting things. So, John?
The last school funding took a little step in that direction on at-risk funding.
Yeah.
There was proposals from lobbyists, and then there was negotiations among committee members, and then finally in the, whatever they call it, conference committee, like the last day of the session at 2 o'clock in the morning, all that kind of stuff. But they started in place a pilot program to implement a program where school districts would have to identify cohort groups that some would include third grade, and you have to set up school district goals for these improvements of these kids that in some manner have to include state assessments. And there's so many years of doing this, but then at the end of the day, if you don't make your goals, you don't get your scheduled increase in at-risk funds for the next year. In other words, finally through all this, they tied it to me. In other words, they did just what you talked about. So in a sense, the crack of the door has already been opened, and what'll happen in the legislature down the road is hard to say, but that's a push.
Any other commentary on that? I just bring that up because those recommendations are gonna become more public. We're not gonna be required to do them, but, and we're doing a lot of it already. We already have a relatively restrictive environment, and I think, as Al and I talked about today, enforcement sometimes is still a little bit of an issue, and that's always gonna be, but by and large, I think we've improved significantly in that area. And hopefully with these recommendations, we can come up with strategies. I mean, when you talk about, and Joel brings this up a lot, when you start talking about addiction, 61% of teens say they sometimes or often neglect daily obligations, school or family, due to use of technology. 70% sometimes or often feel restless, frustrated, or irritated when they cannot access the internet or check their mobile phone. 69% sometimes or often use technology to escape sorrow, get relief from negative feelings. When you rattle on some of this stuff, it's pretty significant. I will say that's not to say that all is bad with social media and all that's bad with technology. There are obviously good things coming from that. When you read this, they bring up they highlight some things that actually are good about the use of social media and are good. Parents being able to communicate with kids, kids being able to engage with their friends. I mean, it's not just all negative. I think, again, I always go back to, it's like when you have a hammer, if you use it to pound nails, it's a wonderful tool. And when you use it to bury in someone's skull, it's an awful tool. And I think to some extent, there are some good uses for technology. The problem is, and I think this gets to Joel's point, when you get addicted to it, it's hard to use it for good because you get lost in it. And unlike a hammer, it's hard to get addicted to a hammer. This is a main part of our life, and trying to thread that needle of using it just enough to benefit our lives, but not so much that we become addicted is hard. I mean, it's, kind of like, I guess, you're trying to lose weight. Like, you can't just forego food. It's not like you quit food cold turkey. You still have to eat some, but you have to eat just enough to survive, not so much that you continue to gain weight. So you're really trying to thread this needle, and I do think, Joel and I have looked at some research. It is an addiction. It is. For a lot of kids, they cannot stay off of it. And now if you get a chance, I'm on my page here. I'm on page 2 here. Like when you get to the bottom, having that addiction section, when you read that, other students indicate differences in how phones and technology impact girls and boys. Female students in middle and high school spend far more time on social media than males. One study found around 12% of girls spend more than 40 hours a week on social media, double the percentage of boys. For girls, social media is connected to body image and eating disorders. Girls are more likely to be cyberbullied. Boys are more likely to have issues with addictive video gaming, higher susceptibility to radicalization, believing in conspiracy theories. I would also add in there sports gambling. That's going to be the next big issue for, I think, males going forward, and are more likely to watch pornography. Most teens of both sexes have seen pornographic materials. 1 in 7 children between 9 and 12 shared a nude photo of themselves in 2020. This is kind of the dynamic we're facing here. And again, I don't want to paint with a broad brush. There are some good things about it, but because of the way it's used and the addictive nature of it, it's hard for them to manage. And, and of course, you always have to be careful about, what you try to impose. Parents are free to make the decisions they want, but as educators, we see the effects every single day, and it's a challenge. And then for me, sometimes it's hard for me to not want to share my own personal perspective and passions with people because I see it. And and then the kicker is people are free to do what they want. But ultimately, we're here to help and try to get them to achieve their goals. So anyway.
One thing, Mr. Jacobs, I want to
Please.
add, Ellenwood was selected recently from the University of Michigan to receive the stipend, and we are going to be participating with 8th graders on, starting in the spring, and it'll be the 8th graders. It's a 20-minute survey. It's for monitoring the future, and they're doing research based on risky behaviors with social media, with vaping, with relationships, things like that. And our information, we get a $500 stipend written to the school to spend on programs that would work for education and training on how to respond to some of that. We can participate in the spring, and then we could do it again in the fall. And we should start receiving data for that information about the time that we're going to start submitting information to the state for that 2026 information through the KISA cycle. It is something we are looking at into for getting some more data to react to some of that.
Again, any questions on that? I mean, again, it's the data item, it's for your benefit only, but if you guys ever have some epiphanies on this, let us know. And it's even not just, I know, ban cell phones and all that, whatever, but even just some more subtle strategies we can use to try to get kids to understand when you're on your own, you have to manage this. Again, you don't want to tread into parent territory, but I do think that, we've even talked about, do we bring some programs in for the community and let them know like what's happening? Because I also think too, there is a dearth of information and knowledge and perspective from the part of the parents on what's happening. I don't care how good you are with those phones, your kids are light years ahead of you. And they can do things that you just would, if you knew, you would think are extremely out of character. And then they're just engaged in that. And it's just the way they are. And they don't even understand, like when it's brought to them, I think sometimes they question, what's the big deal? I don't understand. Everyone does it, that's just what we do. And, from a more maybe mature perspective, it's hard for us to understand that. And like I said, we've had parents many times when we show them that they can't even imagine that their kid would ever do that. And again, there's no blame to be had. That's the digital native versus digital immigrant. We're all digital natives, or digital immigrants. So we came in and we learned analog and then have tried to accommodate. So this really happens? You can really do this? You really think this? There's an algorithm out there that targets you. And that's all they've ever grown up with. And to them, well, yeah, this is just, of course it does. I type in some stuff, and the minute I watch a video on how to putt cross-handed, I get all sorts of stuff onto that. That's a good thing. So it's a challenge. I don't know if the building principals have anything to add to it, but if you guys ever have questions on some of this stuff, let me know. That high-performing district information, we are really trying to glean some information on that to maybe target our school improvement efforts towards some of those things that have been proven to be effective. That's all I have, Madam President, on that.
Okay, that'll bring us to executive session.
Oh, sorry. Madam President, I move we go into executive session to discuss the recommended candidates for hire and job performance, status of personnel pursuant to non-elected personnel, exception under KDMA, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at
However much time you guys feel like you need.
Somebody's done this before.
Should we start with 20?
I think that's good.
So at, just held at 8:50 and then make it round.
There you go.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to go into executive session to discuss recommended candidates for hire and job performance status of personnel pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under COMA, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 8:50. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. house.
We should make
How big
that
do you need?
an agenda item next month.
It's big enough.
What time can we come back in? I don't know.
You're in right now.
We're good? Okay. And I don't have my thing open anymore, but I think we just have to adjourn, right? So, meeting is
No action.
adjourned.